Hello everyone, welcome back to Paint the Party. This week I did another diorama. This one was a western themed one. I used these two cowboy miniatures that I printed on my new 3D printer, so if you've not seen the unboxing, go and check it out. I'll link the miniatures in the description if you want to print them yourselves. So to start off with, the vision I kind of had was to have this sort of desert trail with sort of banks on the side, was kind of what I was going for. So I lined up the foam and the base, and then I used these other two bits to have either side to create the banks. I then kind of realised that if I just used the flat rectangle pieces of foam, it would look pretty unnatural. So I decided to cut just sort of random shapes out and then glue these down. So this is just me deciding where I was going to place each one. I guess the aim really was to make it look as natural as possible. That's what I ended up with. So I whipped out the glue, the foam safe super glue, glued everything down. Lesson was learned on the last diorama. I used more glue spread evenly where it was needed. I have kind of realised that these squares of XPS foam that I've got, I don't know if it's the foam or if it's the wood, but they seem to be kind of warped, so they've curved, which is kind of causing problems with it sticking to the wood. You'll probably see in the end. I hopefully covered it up a bit, but I've got some thicker insulation foam that I'm going to use for the next diorama to hopefully avoid that again. So once everything was glued down, I wanted to create a nice terrain paste. I used the AK dry ground. This is like a deserty, sandy colour, but I wanted more of like a red soil feel to it. So I bought this canyon brown from my local hobby store, and this all game terrain sand, which I layered on top after a base layer. So I just mixed all this together with Mod Podge. I think Google said like 4:1 for Mod Podge to paint, which I chose to ignore because it felt like an awful lot of Mod Podge. I had like a crazy amount of this stuff left. I gave it a good mix to get a nice sandy, red, canyony feel. I did end up using more of the canyon paint just to get it a bit darker. And I threw a bit of black in as well. So then I kind of just painted it on for a nice base coat. I did kind of realise early on that the sharp edges of the foam that I'd cut out did not look very natural. I did manage to solve the problem by using an awful lot of terrain paste to fill in between the gaps and give it more of a mound feel. So as I said, this is just me going over everything again with the terrain paste to get more of a smooth edges and a more natural feel. I think my plan is going forward to use the thicker insulation foam that I can texture into rather than onto, if that makes sense, because this terrain paste definitely shouldn't be used for this, and I had to use an awful lot of it. So that's what we ended up with. I then went back over this with the red canyon paint to get that nice earthy tone back. And then it was time to sprinkle the sand. This is my first time using anything like sand for a diorama. It's very, very messy. So rather than just sprinkle straight from the bag, I use this little glass pot. I give it a quick spray with isopropyl alcohol just to set everything. And then just tapped off any of the excess. And after a quick clean up, what I wanted to add was like wagon wheel tracks. I wanted this to feel like a well-used road. So to get a good idea of scale, I just positioned the two cowboys next to each other, as I imagined the coach would kind of be a two-seater. So then I just did the wheel tracks either side of those. And then I wanted to add what I kind of was aiming for, horse hoof marks. In the end, I didn't quite get the shape right. So, I mean, there's nothing else there would be other than horse tracks and boot prints. And then I just sort of scuffed everything up a bit to make it look well used. And then I got out the Army Painter shrubs. I used these in the last diorama. I originally bought these for this, and then the last diorama I did, I ended up using them just sort of as a random thing. But I kind of spread these around and avoided the road. And then I used burnt umber. This is an oil paint. so it had to be thinned. This is the first time I think I've ever used oil paint in my life. Google said the consistency wants to be semi-skimmed milk, which as a reference I didn't really understand, but it did come out looking quite good. Again, this is one of those things where I mixed up way more than I was ever going to use, but hey, we'll learn. So I just use this as kind of like a wash everywhere on the diorama where I would kind of imagine the soil underneath the sand would be showing. And this is what we ended up with, which I was very pleased with. Then it came time to paint the minis. I'd primed these black and then gone over them with a zenithal highlight with the fur brown, I think it's called, just to give kind of like a dusty feel, but also keep the dark shadows with the black. So for our bounty hunter, I wanted to give him kind of a, I guess, maroon, burgundy, is it a trench coat? I don't think it's a trench coat. His jacket anyway. Duster, that's it, Duster. I'm trying to think of Red Dead Redemption names. I just went with black on the boots. And then use soft leather on anything that was leather. And I wanted to have kind of like a dirty looking white undershirt, which I think I achieved. And then the bounty poster is just like a off-white. And then it was just the same story for the bandit. I hadn't realised when I printed him he's actually wearing a waistcoat, which was kind of cool. So I painted his shirt like another off-white kind of colour, as if it was white when he first bought it, but after however long in the desert it's now browned. I used dwarf gold on these bullets in his belt, just to add a bit more colour, and give him a nice tanned skin tone. The bounty hunter, I used the rosy skin tone, which I wasn't thrilled with, but that's all I had. I think I do need to invest in some more skin tone paints. So after I gave the edge of the base a nice matte black finish, it was time to glue the cowboys down. So once I decided where they were each going to stand and the kind of distance between them, I just glued them in. And once the bounty hunter was glued down, it was time for the reveal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. If you're new around here, please subscribe. It helps me massively. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.